Hey guys, Andrew Shrout here in the sideboard. I'm here with Ross Merriam, one of the at-large competitors in the Players Championship, actually the first at-large competitor. And we're here to talk about your standard deck. So let's get right into it. You're playing Jeskai tokens.
Yep. Turns out it's much easier to sculpt a masterpiece when you start with one.
Okay, fair enough. So this was you started with Yui Watanabe's deck from the World Championships.
Yeah, he's a lot better than I am.
He's a powerful wizard. And so your deck choice is basically his. This is a deck that we've seen before, but we'll want to run through it briefly. We have, of course, the token producers, some additional threats.
All pretty standard. Yeah, Chandra, Card Advantage Engine, really good in the deck. Really good right now in standard, too.
Okay. And the treasure cruises?
One little change, swap to the 4th Lightning Strike for Magma Jet. I did not expect a lot of the standard targets for Lightning Strike, which are mainly Fleeceman Lion and Mantis Rider.
Okay.
And so getting the little extra scry action, little card filtering is nice.
Okay.
I didn't want to go too deep on that because you actually do burn your opponents out pretty frequently, and missing a couple points of damage could actually make a difference.
Okay. All right, so that is one of the changes that you've made. You mentioned you made 2 total to the main deck. We have Stoke the Flames, Jeskai Charm, you do burn people out, and then the other change in the mana base.
Yeah, I actually did this when I played the deck in Portland. I cut a Temple of Epiphany for Shivan Reef, and by I mean Nathan Holiday, because he loaned me the deck.
Okay.
But when I was testing the deck, I kept sort of a keen eye as to where the mana base was having some issues. And you have some games where you have issues with tap lands, and some games where you have issues where you're dealing yourself a lot of damage. But I found the tap land issues to be more damning than the pain land issues. Okay. So I wanted to get another untapped land in there.
All right. So other than that, it's a mana base. In fact, it's Yui's mana base.
Yeah,
so,
really good.
Yeah,
not trying to reinvent the wheel here.
Sure. We won't focus on it too much. Let's talk a little bit about your preparation for this event. So I know obviously you're playing Yui's deck, but this is a deck that you have been playing for a couple of weeks now at least.
Yeah, I decided to play it in Portland, which was sort of the initial stages of my testing that culminated in this event. We went out to Portland and Seattle, and I knew those events were sort of testing grounds for this one.
Okay.
And I wanted to play the Jeskai deck in Portland because I didn't really want to play a mid-range whip deck. I didn't want to get involved in all those grindy mirror matches. Just not my game. I want to be aggressive. And I thought if there was a deck that really was the best deck and was going to turn out to be a deck to beat, it was going to be this one, and I wanted to find that out as quickly as I could. And the deck performed well for me. I mean, I made top 8, so I at that point, I thought I was locked in for the next 2 weeks just playing this deck at the Invitational and in Seattle, or Invitational in Seattle and here. But testing the week in Seattle, I just got destroyed by Doomwake Giants and Whips the entire time, and I mean, I held out. I was playing this deck all throughout testing. I didn't switch to the Obson Whip deck that our entire house ended up playing until the night before the tournament. Okay. So most of my experience was still with this deck, and when I started preparing for this week's event, I noticed that in my list of what I thought people were going to play, there were not as many Whips and Doomwake Giants as I would have expected. Okay. And so I thought this was going to be a good choice again. So it was pretty easy to convince myself to get back onto it. All right. This deck's way more fun than the Whip decks, too.
Sure.
Ooh, baby, is this deck fun.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about this list that you speak of.
Yeah.
So it's a small tournament, of course. It's only 16 players. You know a lot of these guys. You're friends with a lot of them. Like, pretty easy to predict what some people are going to be playing. So at some point, you just kind of sat down, wrote out all 16 names, and like assigned a deck, like what you think they were going to play? Yep. Okay. Just
had it with me. I kept referencing it. So I filled things in as I got a better idea. Some of the elements of the list were a bit more vague. I mean, I've Gerard and Jim Davis on some sort of control deck. Sure. Not exactly sure what it's going to be, but it'll be dig through time control. I have some people in Legacy I've listed as just fair blue decks of some variety, but not exactly sure. But I mean, I could pencil in a month ago that Tom Ross was going to be playing Blue-White Heroic, and in fact, Joe Lissette was going to be playing Blue-White Heroic and Miracles.
All right.
So you can get a really good idea of what people are up to.
Okay, so this deck, basically you're based on kind of the bigger picture of like what 16 people are going to play in Standard. What is it about the 16 metagame, the 16 deck metagame that you expect that makes this deck a good choice?
I think there are going to be fewer Doomwake Giants than are around. I mean, this deck I think is favored against basically anything else other than Doomwakes. It was close between this and running back Obson Whip because that deck was also very good for me. And it it was a bit over metagamed for Seattle, and I could have toned that down a bit for this week. But one, I enjoy playing this deck a lot more, and this deck is significantly better against Blue-White Heroic.
Okay.
And there are definitely two people that I thought were definitely in, and I actually am more likely to play against those two people in the first group stage, which was a big part of how I looked at and analyzed my metagame list. Like I weighted the people that I was more likely to get paired against, which are people who are invitational winners and season winners.
Right. Okay. Because each pod has one invitational winner, one season points leader, and then two at-larges.
Exactly. And I'm going to be one of the at-larges, so I'm only 1-7 to meet one of the other at-larges in the pod, and I'm 1-4 to meet anyone else.
Okay.
So those decks got more weight when I was looking at it, and both heroic guys are in the 1-4 group. As opposed to the 1-7 group.
Okay.
And actually, most of my whips were in the 1-7 group, so that deck also went down in weight.
All right. So I have all the cards since I've seen the deck list, but who are the people that you are expecting to be these heroic people that you were?
Heroic, I have Tom Ross and Joel Set. It's the decks I've been playing. Whips, I have the Florida guys.
Okay.
Not entirely sure there. I'm pretty sure S-Man played Obson Whip last week, or he did in the Open. That's it.
Okay.
He copied the actual Open. And I figure that he's working with Logan. They'll probably end up on the same deck.
Okay.
I'm kicking myself for not scouting Logan more last week in Seattle because he's played nothing but Omnitel and Legacy, and I just can't imagine ever playing Omnitel in this tournament.
Okay.
So I have him listed as Omnitel, but I'm not confident at all in that one. The other Doomwake deck that I definitely think is going to be there is Reed. I think it'll just be run back Black Ring Constellation from Worlds. And I'm a bit likely to play against Reed, but I think that matchup would be a little bit easier because they don't put on as much pressure.
Gotcha.
Like the Obzon decks were just really rough because they would land a Rhino and then just continuously wipe your board with Drowns and Doomwakes and gain life with Whips or Thoughtseize you. Anytime I tried to leave up Disdainful Stroke, they would just cast Courser or Read the Bones. Anytime I tapped out, they cast a Rhino. Jerks.
Yeah. So it sounds like a miserable old time.
Oh, Seattle testing in Seattle was not fun. I was excited going in. I was like, yeah, I have my deck. I'm just gonna tune it, figure out what I want to be doing with it, and then it just every day, they're just like, dude, switch decks. Your deck isn't good. Now I want this deck to be good so badly, and it is a good deck. It's very powerful. So hopefully it'll be good this week.
Yeah, we've got the beginnings of the sideboard up here. We're gonna kind of run through the sideboard cards really quickly.
Yeah, my sideboard. Philosophically is much different from Yuya's.
Okay.
I cut down essentially the entire control package, and Hostilities was the worst card for me in Portland out of the board. Elspeth put in some work, but I wanted something that was going to be more aggressive and better against Doomwake Giant and Siege Rhino. Okay. And Elspeth can come down and kill Siege Rhino, but it's probably going to die later. So you'll see I have a bit more of an aggressive plan.
Okay.
The counter spells have definitely still been good. I increased my Glare count. Partially to fight Heroic, and partially to fight Siege Rhinos.
Sure.
When we can get the Siege Rhino out of the way, you're usually in good shape.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty typical, a number of erases, and Anger was a card that I played in Portland as well that was really good in the mirror. I was actually able to win an on-camera feature match just with Anger, Seeker, and Ascendancy. My opponent had to spent the entire game and got ahead and developed this huge board. He had 6 tokens and a Rabble Master, and it's Anger the Gods, attack you for 4, game 4, and completely won the game by itself. I had 2 then, and cutting the second Anger was the last thing I did to make room for the other cards on the board.
Okay.
And it's a little situational. It's not good when you're ahead. And you already bring in Erase in the mirror, which is also narrow with only 4 targets. I just don't want to get stuck with that many narrow cards in my deck, so I figured Anger was the cut.
You've got a little bit of proactivity coming out of the board
here's
here.
the pro action. I know Dylan told me that the Gryphs were good for him. Talked with him a bit in Seattle, and even though it's a Nombo with a Wingmate Rock, I think but we should be okay there. Wingmate Rock was a card I tested the week in Seattle trying to solve the Obzon matchup, and whenever I triggered Raid with it, the game ended immediately. They just couldn't deal with it. It's really good at racing a Rhino. Really gets through their removal, their 1-for-1 removal spells. Survives Drown and Sorrow. It basically does everything. It can be a little tough to trigger Raid because you cut down on some creatures in that matchup anyway to try to play through Drown a little bit better, and you need to bring in some counter spells. And so triggering Raid can be a little tough, but we'll make it work. Yeah.
All right. So you started with a masterpiece, and certainly it seems like you know where you stand with it.
Yeah. Maybe I made it worse.
It remains to be seen.
Yeah. Well,
thanks for coming in and talking to me about it.
No problem.
Stick around. We've got plenty more coverage coming of the Players' Championship here in Roanoke.